The morning light slipped through cream curtains, spilling warmth across the kitchen tiles. Emily moved gracefully, barefoot, humming softly as the kettle hissed. The faint aroma of toasted bread mingled with the scent of fresh lilies she'd bought yesterday. Her little attempt to brighten the week. Ryan entered, adjusting his tie, his smile polite but tired. "Coffee?" she asked, voice light, masking the uncertainty that had crept into their mornings. "Please," he replied, eyes fixed on his phone. She poured him a cup, watching the reflection of his expressionless face in the dark liquid. The silence between them had become its own presence, patient, heavy, uninvited. Yet she pretended not to notice, chatting about a friend's new baby, the neighbor's barking dog, the mundane rhythm of life that used to make her feel safe. Ryan looked up briefly. "We'll talk tonight, Em, okay?" She smiled too quickly. "Sure." A kiss followed, brief, rehearsed, and then the sound of the door clicking shut. Emily stood by the counter for a moment longer, staring at the empty space he left behind. The clock ticked steadily, indifferent. As the day unfolded, she went through her routine: laundry, errands, replying to messages. Yet something in the air felt oddly still, like the calm before a storm. Her best friend Sarah texted, "You doing okay? Haven't heard from you much." Emily typed a reply, then deleted it. She didn't know what to say anymore. In the evening, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. She called Ryan once, then again. No answer. She tried his office. The receptionist said he'd left hours ago. By 9 p.m., worry began to gnaw at the edges of her composure. She lit a candle on the dining table, its flicker throwing shadows across the framed photo of their wedding day. Their smiles frozen in a time that felt foreign now. The wind howled outside. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Emily looked at the phone again, the silence on the line louder than the storm itself, and as the candle guttered, the house fell into an unsettling quiet, a quiet that would soon be broken. Rain still clung to Ryan's jacket as he stepped out of the car. The porch light glowed faintly against the mist, the kind of soft, eerie light that makes shadows feel alive. He hesitated before unlocking the front door, but it was already open. Just slightly, just enough to unsettle him. "Emily?" he called out, pushing the door wider. The hinges creaked. The living room lights were still on, the television murmuring to no one. A folded blanket lay on the couch, untouched. Her slippers sat neatly by the rug, facing the wrong direction. A small detail, but somehow wrong. The air smelled faintly of rain and lavender detergent, but beneath it something else. Something metallic, almost sour. He walked into the kitchen, setting down his keys. "Em, you home?" Her phone rested on the counter, the screen lighting up with missed calls. The cup beside it still held coffee, now cold but not congealed. It hadn't been sitting long. He touched the mug. Warm, his pulse quickened. Ryan called her name again, louder this time. No answer. The refrigerator hummed. The house, their house, suddenly felt foreign, as if someone had rearranged the silence itself. He moved down the hallway, glancing into rooms that seemed frozen in time. Her book still open on the armchair, the faint smell of her perfume lingering near the staircase. A floorboard creaked upstairs. He froze. Emily, nothing. Only the patter of rain against the windows. He took the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Halfway up, he noticed it, a dark smear on the wall near the handrail. At first, he thought it was dirt. But as he leaned closer, the truth caught the light. Blood. The sight was small, yet paralyzing. A thin streak running downward, glistening faintly in the warm light. He stared, breath shallow, heart hammering. Logic tried to reason. Maybe she'd cut herself, maybe it was nothing serious, but dread whispered otherwise. "Emily," he shouted, voice cracking now. He ran up the last few steps, his shoes echoing in the hallway. The bedroom door was wide open. Sheets rumpled. A faint indentation on the carpet, as if something or someone had been dragged. Thunder rolled outside, rattling the windows. Ryan's eyes darted toward the landing, where the smear of blood led down again, toward the base of the stairs. And there, at the bottom, in the dim light of the hallway, a single drop fell. Fresh. Red. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was waiting, Red and blue lights painted the wet pavement outside, flickering through the rain. The once quiet neighborhood had transformed into a scene of whispers and flashing chaos. Officers moved in and out of the house, their radios crackling softly. Ryan sat on the couch, hands clasped, staring blankly at the half-empty coffee cup still on the counter. His shirt clung to him, damp from the storm, or sweat, no one could tell. He looked composed, too composed, as if the panic belonged to someone else entirely. Detective Laura Miles arrived just past 10. Tall, sharp-eyed, and unhurried, she carried an air of quiet authority that silenced the murmurs as she entered. She took in the scene, the ajar front door, the blood smear near the stairs, the overturned lamp by the hallway. "Mr. Carter?" she asked gently. "You're the husband?" Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes, I came home and found the door open. I can't find her." His tone hovered somewhere between confusion and control, but his eyes lacked tears. Laura studied him for a moment before glancing toward an officer. "Secure the perimeter. I want every exit checked." She turned back to Ryan. "You said you left for work at 8? He nodded again. "She was fine. We had breakfast. I left after that." His voice trembled faintly on the last word. Whether from guilt, shock, or exhaustion, Laura couldn't tell. She'd seen it before. Men who broke too soon and men who never broke at all. Neighbors began to gather outside, umbrellas forming a sea of dark silhouettes. Middle-aged woman, Mrs. Holloway from next door, told officers she'd heard raised voices around noon. "Could have been the TV," she added quickly, though her eyes betrayed uncertainty. Inside, the air felt thick with something unspoken. Officers snapped photographs, tagging evidence. Laura noticed Ryan's hands, clasped tightly, knuckles pale, yet spotless. No dirt, no trace of blood. She also noticed the faintest tremor when she mentioned his wife's name. Through the narration, fragments of their life surfaced. Late-night arguments about bills, her quiet disapproval of his drinking, his jealousy when she mentioned old friends. Emily had once told Sarah she felt like she was living beside a stranger wearing her husband's face. Laura's gaze lingered on Ryan once more. "We'll find her," she said. But her tone wasn't reassuring. It was probing. Outside, thunder rumbled again, distant yet heavy. The night was far from over, and as Laura's eyes followed the trail of blood down the stairs, she knew, whatever had happened here, it had only just begun. The rain had stopped by morning, but the sky remained gray, the kind of dull light that made everything look tired. Detective Laura Miles sat across from Ryan in the dimly lit interview room. The hum of the fluorescent light above them filled the silence between questions. "Let's go over it again," Laura said, voice calm but pointed. "You left home at 8, correct?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, she was making breakfast. We didn't argue. Everything was fine." "Fine," Laura repeated, leaning back. "And you didn't return until?" "Around 7:30. The door was open." His voice was steady, but his eyes flickered. A practiced rhythm, words rehearsed like lines from a script, Laura noticed. "You said that before," she murmured. "Almost exactly," he blinked, stiffening slightly. "Because that's what happened." Her gaze held him. "You sure about that?" The question hung in the air. Ryan's jaw tightened. He looked down, fingers interlaced, the gold band on his ring finger catching the light. As he hesitated, the narrative drifted back. Emily's memory surfacing like a ghost. She had been standing in that same kitchen 2 weeks earlier, watching Ryan whisper into his phone. He turned his back, voice low, guarded. When she asked who it was, he smiled, that smooth, empty smile she'd learned to fear. "Work stuff, Em, don't start." Later that night, she'd checked his phone, only to find his call logs wiped clean. The next day, his laptop was password protected for the first time in years. In the present, Laura's voice cut through the memory. "You said your marriage was good?" Ryan looked up. "Every marriage has its moments, but your neighbor mentioned arguments," Laura countered. "Raised voices yesterday afternoon," he hesitated again. "She's mistaken." Silence stretched. Laura studied his expression, the flicker of irritation he couldn't quite hide. She closed her notebook slowly. "We'll confirm your timeline, Mr. Carter. You'll be staying nearby, I assume." He nodded, but the composure in his face faltered just enough to betray unease. As Laura left the room, she whispered to an officer, "Get a subpoena for his phone records." Outside, the hallway light flickered once, then steadied, as if the house itself, somewhere waiting, held more truth than he did, and miles away, Emily's secrets were waiting to be found. The printout of Ryan's phone records lay on Detective Laura Miles' desk like a quiet confession. One number appeared again and again. Late nights, early mornings, even during work hours. Always the same contact. No name, just 10 digits. Laura tapped her pen against the page. "Let's see who you are," she muttered. Within hours, the trace came back. Clara Jensen, marketing associate at the same firm as Ryan Carter. By noon, Laura was sitting across from Clara in a sterile conference room at the police station. The woman was in her early 30s. Neat blazer, trembling hands, eyes darting toward the door every few seconds. "I don't understand why I'm here," Clara began. Her voice wavering, Laura leaned forward. "You spoke to Ryan Carter 23 times in the past 2 weeks. Care to explain?" Clara swallowed. "We worked together. Big project, tight deadlines, midnight calls, weekend messages?" Laura's tone remained even, but her gaze sharpened. Clara's lip trembled before she forced a small laugh. He gets anxious about presentations." But Laura saw the panic beneath the mask, the way Clara twisted the hem of her sleeve, the way her foot tapped uncontrollably beneath the table. Was there a relationship? Clara's silence said everything. Finally, she whispered, "He told me it was over with Emily, that they were separating." Her words fell like stones into the quiet room. Laura nodded slowly. "Did he ever threaten you?" Clara hesitated. "Not directly. But sometimes he'd get this look, calm but cold. Once I said I wanted to stop whatever this was, and he said, 'Don't make me regret trusting you.' I didn't know what that meant." "I still don't." Laura studied her carefully. "You should stay somewhere safe for a few days." As Clara gathered her things, her phone buzzed on the table. The screen flashed a name, Ryan Carter. She froze, the color draining from her face. Laura met her eyes. "Don't answer." Clara nodded shakily, slipping the phone into her bag. When she left, Laura turned back to the evidence board, Ryan's photo pinned beside Emily's, the space between them filled with unanswered questions. And beneath the fluorescent hum, Laura whispered to herself, "Someone's been lying, and not just once." Outside, the rain began again, soft and relentless and washing nothing clean. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the town cloaked in pale gray light. Detective Laura Miles sat in her car outside a quiet suburban home. Sarah Langford, Emily's best friend. She'd called the station claiming to have found something important. Sarah greeted her at the door, eyes red from crying. "I couldn't sleep," she murmured, leading Laura inside. The air smelled faintly of vanilla candles and dust, comfort trying to disguise grief. On the kitchen table lay a small leather-bound notebook, edges frayed, a thin ribbon marking the last page red. Sarah ran her fingers across it gently. "I was helping her pack some things last month," she said softly. "She told me not to open the drawer in her study. I didn't until now." Laura put on gloves and opened the journal. Emily's handwriting was neat at first, organized, careful, but the later entries slanted with unease. The first pages spoke of love and compromise, of trying to fix a marriage that no longer breathes. But the tone shifted, entry by entry, into something darker. September 2nd. "He's been short-tempered again. Last night he slammed the door so hard the picture fell. He apologized, said he didn't mean it. I believed him. I always do. September 15th. The late calls haven't stopped." I asked. He lied. His voice changes when he says her name. Laura paused, glancing at Sarah. She knew about Clara. Sarah nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. She didn't tell me much. Just that she was scared. Laura turned another page. The handwriting had grown jagged. September 28th. "I'm saving money, keeping it hidden. I have to leave soon before he notices." And then the final entry, written in trembling strokes. October 1st. "He looked at me differently tonight. Not angry, just calm, too calm. If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Laura closed the journal slowly. "Sarah, I'll need to take this." Sarah nodded, whispering. She wanted to believe he'd change. Laura stood, glancing toward the window. The morning light had turned harsh, slicing through the curtains. Outside, a police car pulled up. The forensics team arriving with news. Laura's phone buzzed. A text from the station read, "Blood results are back." "You need to see this," she exhaled slowly. The cracks were widening, and soon everything would break. Detective Laura Miles stood outside the interrogation room, phone still in hand. The message from the forensics team replayed in her mind. Emily's blood confirmed on Ryan's shirt. It wasn't a rumor now. It was proof. She entered the room quietly. Ryan sat at the table, looking smaller than before, his composure cracking at the edges. The air felt heavy, stagnant with the smell of cold coffee and nervous sweat. "Morning, Ryan," Laura said, placing a folder in front of him. "Rough night?" He didn't answer, eyes fixed on the table. His fingers traced invisible lines on the surface, controlled, rhythmic, but trembling ever so slightly. "I've got the lab results," she continued. "You want to tell me why your wife's blood was found on your shirt?" Ryan's head jerked up, his eyes widening just a fraction. "That's impossible. I told you, I found the door open, And the shirt was in your laundry hamper," Laura interrupted, flipping open the folder. "You said you hadn't changed clothes since you called 911. That's your first contradiction." He swallowed hard, trying to speak, but the words tangled. Maybe I brushed against something when I checked the stairs." "The blood was on your sleeve," Laura said flatly. "Not on your hands." "Try again." Ryan's breathing quickened. He rubbed his temple, then leaned back, forcing a thin smile. "You're twisting everything." "You think I hurt her?" "You don't know what she was like." Laura's gaze sharpened. "Go on." He hesitated, then exhaled shakily. She had moods. She'd provoke me. Say cruel things just to see how far she could push. His tone cracked, revealing both anger and desperation. Laura noticed the faint scratch along his right hand, shallow but fresh. "How'd you get that?" "Fixing the garage door," he said too quickly. She said nothing, only wrote something in her notebook. The silence pressed down like weight. Finally, Laura stood, closing the folder. "We'll need you to stay available, Ryan. Don't leave town." He forced a nod, his mask slipping just enough to show what was underneath. Fear. As Laura stepped out into the hallway, an officer approached with a sealed evidence bag. Inside lay a torn piece of fabric, Emily's. Laura stared at it. "Bring Clara Jensen back in," she said quietly. The truth was beginning to rot its way to the surface. The air in the interrogation room was colder today. Ryan Carter sat across from Detective Laura Miles, his tie gone, sleeves rolled up, eyes red-rimmed. The confident man she'd first met was now a shadow, exhausted, defensive, and quietly unraveling. Laura dropped a small stack of photographs onto the table. Each one captured moments of him and Clara Jensen. Lunch meetings, a motel parking lot, a lingering touch outside his office. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Ryan's jaw tightened. "You've been following me?" "No," Laura said evenly. "But your phone records did." He looked down at the photos, silent for a long moment before finally sighing. "Fine, yes, I was seeing her. But that doesn't mean I hurt Emily." Laura leaned forward. "You lied to me. You lied to your wife. So tell me, Ryan, why should I believe anything you say now?" He pressed his palms to his face. "Because I didn't kill her. I left for work that morning and didn't come back until evening." "That's the truth." Laura slid another folder across the table. "Then explain this." Inside were still frames from a nearby traffic camera. Ryan's car, timestamped 12:14 p.m., turning onto his street. He froze. That's not possible." "Except it is," Laura said. "You said you were at work. Your employer says you clocked out at 11:50. So where did you go?" Ryan's breath came faster. "I went for a drive. I needed space. We fought the night before. I just needed to think." "Think?" Laura repeated, voice lowering. "Or make sure something was done." He slammed his hand on the table. "No, you're twisting everything. You don't know what she was capable of." Laura didn't flinch. "Then tell me." His voice cracked. "She said she was leaving me. That morning. She packed a bag." His eyes darted up, wild. "But she was alive when I left. I swear it." Laura studied him for a long, heavy silence, then stood. "You're done for today." As she stepped outside, her assistant approached, whispering, "Ma'am, the lab found something else. Fibers from Emily's nightgown in the trunk of Ryan's car." Laura's gaze hardened. Get a warrant. We're searching his property. Behind the glass, Ryan sat trembling, his reflection fractured in the window's glare, a man watching his own alibi crumble. Detective Laura Miles entered the interrogation room without a word. The blinds were drawn, the overhead light humming faintly. Ryan Carter sat slouched in the chair, wrists resting on the table, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. His lawyer was gone now. He'd waived counsel, insisting he had nothing left to hide. Laura set a small smartwatch on the table between them. Emily's smartwatch. The band was cracked, faint traces of blood near the clasp. You know what this is? She asked quietly. Ryan's gaze flicked toward it, then away. Her watch, right, Laura said. The one synced to her phone. The one that recorded your last conversation. His shoulders tensed. Laura pressed play, the room filled with static, then Emily's trembling voice. Ryan, please, I just need space. Then his voice, sharper, laced with fury. Space? After everything I gave you, you think you can just walk out? There was a crash, a sound like glass shattering, followed by her gasp. The recording ended abruptly. Ryan's breathing quickened, eyes darting between Laura and the device. You don't know what that was, he whispered. You're twisting it, Laura leaned in. Then explain it. He shook his head violently. She was leaving. I tried to stop her. She kept saying she didn't love me anymore, that she'd found someone better. His voice broke. Laura waited, silent, letting the weight of his words fill the space. She wouldn't stop yelling, he muttered. I grabbed her arm, told her we could fix it. She pulled away. I didn't mean to push that hard. Push? Laura asked softly. Ryan's eyes glistened. She fell. I swear to God, she fell. I panicked. There was blood. I tried to lift her. She wasn't breathing. His breath hitched, the mask finally shattering. I loved her. You have to understand that. I just wanted her to stay. Laura's expression stayed composed, but her voice carried quiet steel. You hit her body, Ryan. You didn't call for help. He pressed his palms against his eyes, sobbing now. Because I knew no one would believe me. It was supposed to be an accident. The silence that followed was long and suffocating, the kind that buries denial once and for all. Laura stood, sliding the smartwatch into an evidence bag. You're right about one thing, she said, voice cold. No one will believe you, because the truth is uglier than the lie. Outside, rain began again, tapping against the glass, and as officers entered to take Ryan away, Laura looked down the hallway toward the evidence room, where Emily's journal waited, its final page whispering that this was never just an accident. The flash of camera bulbs turned the courthouse steps into a frenzy of light. Reporters shouted Ryan Carter's name, their voices overlapping with the rhythmic click of shutters. His face, once that of a respected husband, was now a portrait of disgrace. Hollow, pale, defeated. 2 officers guided him through the crowd, handcuffs gleaming under the morning sun. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. Somewhere in that chaos, his gaze met Laura Miles's, standing at the bottom of the steps. For a fleeting second, he looked almost grateful, as if the weight of the truth at last had offered him a strange kind of peace. The headlines followed within hours. Husband confesses in shocking murder of wife. Smartwatch recording cracks the Carter case. Every news channel repeated the same loop. Ryan's arrest. The recovered evidence, the journal, the confession. The nation watched, dissected, and judged. But Laura knew the truth was never as clean as the headlines made it seem. That evening, she sat alone in her office, the city lights flickering through the blinds. On her desk lay Emily's journal, open to the last written page. The edges were smudged with tears, old dried ones that had probably fallen as Emily wrote her final words. I still love him, but I can't live like this. Every day feels smaller, tighter, like I'm vanishing in slow motion. If love is supposed to make you feel safe, then why do I feel like I'm being watched, even when I'm alone? Laura closed her eyes. The words bled into her thoughts like an echo of everything she'd seen before. The pattern of obsession dressed as devotion, control masquerading as care. Love wasn't supposed to end like this, she thought. But in her line of work, it often did. A knock at the door pulled her back. An officer stood there with a folder. Preliminary sentencing hearing set for next week, he said quietly. Laura nodded. Thank you. When he left, she turned to the window. Outside, rain streaked down the glass again, relentless like memory. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, fading into the night. She whispered to the empty room. He said he loved her. The journal lay open, pages fluttering slightly in the draft, as if Emily herself were answering back. And beneath the hum of the city, one truth lingered. Love and control were never meant to share the same heartbeat. Winter had settled over the town, the kind that muted sound and slowed time. The cemetery lay still beneath a pale sky, its stones slick with frost. Detective Laura Miles stood before a simple granite headstone that read, Emily Carter, 1989-2024. Loved, remembered, free. She brushed snow from the base and set down a single white lily. For a moment she just stood there, listening to the faint rustle of trees, the soft whisper of wind through brittle leaves. So much had happened since that night. The trial, the conviction, the media storm, all of it fading now into silence. Ryan Carter had been sentenced to life in prison 2 months ago. His last words in court still echoed in Laura's mind. I never meant to lose her. The world had moved on, but some stories didn't end with verdicts. They lingered. A soft crunch of snow announced the mail carrier approaching. Detective Miles? He asked, holding out a small, weathered envelope. This was redirected from the department. Postmarked the day before Mrs. Carter's death. Laura accepted it carefully, her heart tightening as she recognized the handwriting. Delicate, steady, unmistakably Emily's. Inside was a short note and a few photographs. The pictures showed Ryan and Clara, together laughing in a cafe, his hand resting on hers, proof she had never needed to find. The note read, Laura, if anything happens to me, please don't let him charm his way out of this. I thought I could forgive him. I was wrong. Laura folded the letter slowly, her breath visible in the cold air. She looked back at the gravestone, her voice a quiet promise. You were right, Emily, he won't walk free. The wind stirred, lifting the edges of the snow, carrying her words away. As Laura turned to leave, the faintest glimmer of sun broke through the clouds, touching the name on the stone, betrayed by her husband. The truth, at last, had found its peace, even if love never did.